Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Mic'd Podcast. I'm Mike, a hairdresser of over 20 years. One of the best parts of my job is the conversations that I get to have with all of my clients. We talk about anything and everything and invite you to listen in as we get mic'd up for today's conversation. Today we had Trish in the chair. Trish is a 44-year-old ER nurse with 2 kids and a husband struggling with addiction. She talks to us about the struggles of being an ER nurse, balancing a rocky home life, but somehow finding herself through all of the chaos. I hope you enjoy this episode. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready for this?
I feel nervous and exciting.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun.
We're going to go down, down a path of wherever you want to go with this conversation.
We are.
And in the whole time, you're going to get a good haircut too. So
that's the best part. Things I have to do to hang out with you now, Mike.
Hey, it's, you don't have to do this to hang out with me.
I know, I just need
I'll
to
hang out
text
with
you
you anytime, anywhere, any place. It's been a while since we've actually seen each other. I think a game night forever ago was the last time we saw each other.
Or a Grizzly game. I saw you at a Grizzly game.
We went to the hockey game.
The hockey game.
So what is the latest and greatest and what's happening in Tricia's life?
What is happening in my life? Well, I finished my master's degree since I've seen you.
Okay.
And I'm not using it.
But you're still at the ER, you're nursing
still
at the
an emergency
ER, right?
room nurse, which I have just the best love-hate relationship for. I think probably every other shift, I'm like, why did I stop doing hair? Where people like me.
People love
you what
in
I
the
do
ER.
for them. But yeah, it's a hard job it's like an abusive relationship where you get trauma bonded to all of your coworkers and it feels hard to leave.
So is it you feel like you're attached to the coworkers, not to the patients? Or
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like my passion for becoming a nurse has always been from me being a patient. And that's why I left doing hair.
Yeah. Well, because it's been 15 years?
No, because I stopped doing hair when I had Reed, my 10-year-old.
Okay,
He's
so it's
10
been
now.
10 years.
Well, it had to been 10 years because I couldn't do both anymore.
Because
nursing.
you quit doing hair because you yourself had cancer, right?
Well, I had to stop for a little bit. Yeah. When I had cancer is when we were working with Steve in downtown in that little hole in the wall on Main Street, Center Street.
Yep.
In Provo.
That's when you quit?
Well, that's when I had to pause. Remember, I had to pause because it was so taxing on my body. I couldn't get through a haircut. Like, I don't know if were you ever around when I would just try to blow dry somebody's hair and I'd get too tired and I'd lay down on the ground. It was just too much.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. So I had to take a break. But then I only came back to doing hair enough so I could still get grants for nursing school to be free. Okay. So it was just enough that I would still qualify. But
yeah, because then you went, so you were doing hair. We were working together in the same salon. Then you got ovarian cancer.
Yep.
Took the break, came back, did a little bit, but all the while you were going to nursing school.
To nursing school.
And you chose to go to nursing school because
of my experience, with cancer.
Because the nurses that helped you
were not nice.
Oh, it was because I thought it was because they were so nice, and you're like, I want to do that. But it's because they were jerks.
They were jerks. There was one, but for the most part, probably 80% were jerks. I think people just forget, I think it's easy to disassociate when you're in healthcare because you see so much that you kind of have to, get a little protective.
How so?
I think it's easy to turn off the human. Sometimes it's hard to look at your patients as humans and to see that you have people that love you and family and these hard things are happening. And I also think as a nurse, you're way overworked and your patient loads aren't appropriate and you're not getting lunch breaks and you're tired and right. And so I feel like as a patient, I wasn't looked at like as a human, right? Like I was 25, I'd never been sick. This was my first experience in healthcare. I had no idea how to navigate healthcare. And the people who were like treating me and helping me weren't very helpful. I will say, except with the exception of two. I mean, for the most part, like I had like when I first got diagnosed with cancer, they thought it had spread throughout my body. So I had this big, massive surgery. They like cut me open. They like filleted me open like a fish. My whole belly from my pelvic bone up to my sternum, they opened to be able to clean and wash out. And after that surgery, and I was waking up, I hadn't even gotten up yet. This tech came and left a bag of wet towels on my bed and was like, call me when you're done. It's like,
wait, why wet towels? Just so you could clean?
I didn't know. So I pushed the call button. I was like, what is this? What am I supposed to be doing? She's like, oh, you need to give yourself a bed bath. And I was like, what? I hadn't even sat up at this point. I still was like flat. And I just was a little bit appalled by that. I was like, what do you mean? And so then I called again and I was like, I can't do this. And she's like, well, oh well, and so she came and got the towels and left again. And it's just like little things like that made my journey harder. Like when you get diagnosed with cancer or any kind of big medical condition, you have these care teams that come together and kind of go over the plan and what to expect and how the treatment will be laid out throughout the course. So like for me, I had like 6 months of chemo and it was all laid out at the beginning. And in that meeting, there was a nurse that was assigned to be my case manager. So she was assigned to call me weekly and follow my progress and make sure I was getting the care I needed and that my side effects were manageable and expected. But in this meeting, she was like, we started talking about hair and how the percentage and what chance I had in losing my hair, which was like 90% chance. And I did. Do you remember?
Oh, No, I remember you coming into the salon
Yes.
after you'd done chemo and you're like, check this out. You can pull this section and it'll just come out. Try it. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I never grabbed a piece of your hair and pulled on it to have it fall out because you'd come in to like shave your head.
Yeah, because it hurt. It hurt. Well, the nurse.
Like chemo hurt or like your hair coming out hurt?
Yeah, because it kills those follicles. And so anytime the wind would blow, my head hurt really bad. And so I had to shave it off so it wasn't so painful as it was falling out.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that like going through chemo made the follicle sensitive.
Yeah. As the cells, it was weird, like laying on it. It felt like, do you know when you wouldn't know this, Mike.
No.
But when girls wear a high ponytail really tight, and then you put like all day, and then you put your hair down, it hurts. Just changing the direction of the way the hair lays, that hurts. And so that's what it was like 24/7. That feeling wouldn't go away. So yeah. You guys didn't let me know. That's like a feeling of love there, because all of my good, like you, my good friend, didn't like doing that. I thought it was really interesting just to take like a 1-inch by 1-inch section, just pop it right off of my scalp, and it was like bald underneath it.
To me, that was just like, I couldn't bring myself to do that because I think there was a part of me that was really, I was sad, I was scared, I was like, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I didn't want my last, if it was to go down that road where that was the last thing for you or whatever, if chemo didn't work and whatever, I didn't want that to be one of my memories. I remember pulling her hair out. That was, because it's just,
It's
tough. I had a lot of emotions with it as well.
It is tough. It is tough. And that's like, I don't know. It's hard to know how to talk to people, engage with people when they're going through hard things.
Yeah.
My family struggled. We like to ignore hard things. sweep them under the rug.
Well, but I think being brought up, because, being brought up in Utah, there's a lot of culture, although you weren't raised in Utah.
No, I wasn't.
But there's a lot of cultural, put it on a shelf. And
put it on a shelf. Don't upset others.
Don't upset others and don't. So you went through, got your nursing degree.
Yeah, so I wanted to, so after some of those experiences that I had, I didn't finish my story.
Okay.
I should probably close it for people who listen and watch. So the nurse, the case manager, we were talking about losing my hair, right? And she, in this meeting, said, I'd rather die than lose my hair. And at that point in my treatment, I thought I was going to die. Like, right, people who get far enough along in ovarian cancer, they don't live. Like, it's like a lot of people die when they get diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So I was really offended by that.
I can't believe a nurse would say that. Like, again.
My mom kicked her out and they assigned me somebody new, which was good. Like, I didn't have the wherewithal to stand up for myself in that moment. So I was glad somebody was there to stand up for me. But I did have a moment, and I think this is where I decided I wanted to be a person that could give back to people who were having hard health problems. There was a time when I had a surgery to be able to correctly diagnose my cancer, because they had thought, based on previous surgeries, and they thought I had stage 4, which is like a fatal
Because when it comes to ovarian cancer, there's what? Stage 4 the worst?
There's a bunch of stages. There's like A's and B's and 1 through like 4. And yeah, the farther along you are in the progression in your disease, the more terminal it becomes. And so they thought I had a terminal case. And I had just had this surgery for them to go in to see like where I truly was at. This is another, so when I think back at it, I was like, why didn't I get any imaging? Things I know now better. But, and I had just had this surgery. I had like a few day inpatient stay to recover. And one of the nurses on the night shift, I just was a ball of anxiety, right? Like 25, single, going through this really hard thing. I'm waiting to hear if I'm going to die or not. Like, this was what the surgery was telling me, like, are you going to die or not? And I was inside an utter mess. But I had one nurse one day that knew, like, really treated me like a human, who like acknowledged that I was having, like, this was hard things, and that it was okay to feel anxiety and the feelings I was feeling, which nobody had talked to me about at all. And then she's just like, you know what? I have some time. Let me put some lotion on your back. And she, like, I just got out of the shower and she rubbed lotion on my back. And I, like, just remembered the feeling of, like, just feeling really loved and cared for. And sharing how I was feeling with this nurse really lightened my mood and really, like, left an impression on me for the better.
Like, it wasn't part of her job. She was just doing it to be nice.
Like, it felt above and beyond, like, which it shouldn't have been. Like, she felt like I felt seen, like, is kind of what it was. I guess I would say I felt really, like, seen by her in my experience that I was having with cancer. And so then when everything was all said and done, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, like, help others feel seen in their healthcare experience. Okay. I thought that would be through becoming an oncology nurse, but I never did that. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I love being an emergency room nurse, because I think it fills the same void where people have no idea what's wrong with them. Most of the time they're coming from some sort of pain, and I get to, like, ease their anxiety.
Do you feel too, like, with the ER stuff, like, I guess using that experience of, like, I don't want to be a jerk to these people. I want to, like, sometimes in the ER they're just coming in sheer panic. So
everybody comes in panic. It doesn't matter if you have, like, a canker sore on your tongue. People still come in panicked.
Wait, people don't come in for a cake store, do they?
They do. They do.
People.
I know. It's
People
very.
of the world.
It's part of a broken system. Is Medicaid. It's part of the broken Medicaid Medicare system, but it's a huge part. I think about my experience as a patient every single shift with every single patient. There are patients that love to push my buttons. They love to push people's buttons, and I just think, I don't know your story, and I don't want to be the person to rain on your parade or make you feel worse about your scenario. That's not my job. It's not why I became a nurse.
So that's just always in the back of your head.
It's always in the back of my head. Where it's like people just need, for me, as long as I'm just acknowledging, people's presence, people's like perceptions or their pain or their story, even if I don't agree with it, just acknowledging it and accepting it and trying to help them feel better or understand it, it works out.
Are you grateful, like, now that you've made the switch? Like, do you ever think, oh, why did I do that?
Well, we're still in post-COVID not funness.
So during COVID, you were like, why did I do this?
Why did I do this?
Sucks.
It sucks. You know what? I am glad I did it.
But what's that? I mean, this is going to be maybe it's not a stupid question, but like, because I don't know, I'm not a nurse. What was it that sucked during COVID? Was it because all we ever heard was like overworked and just a lot of restrictions.
Yeah, it is a lot of that. And I think my experience everybody's experience with COVID is going to be a little bit different. I think the state of Utah got really lucky. We didn't see as much death and as much sickness. But I know, like, from talking with inpatient nurses who, like me, like as an emergency room nurse, I have patients for short periods of time, and then I say goodbye to them. And that's really nice. I don't come in every day, every shift. When I work 3 in a row, I'm not seeing the same patient all the time. And just for the healthcare industry in general, like in inpatient nursing in general, to have to like come in to patients staying in your department for months, when traditionally it's just days or weeks, Even the worst case scenarios for being broken and hurt and sick, you're not in the hospital, like in the ICU for months.
Yeah.
You like develop relationships, and you usually see people, for the most part, get better. Like a bigger chunk of your patients get better. The bigger chunk doesn't die. And during COVID, the bigger chunk died. And I think I know that takes an emotional toll on a person, So that makes it difficult. Not to mention like the regulations, like all the regulations that happen. So I think as a nurse, you're already jumping through hoops for regulatory purposes, and then COVID hit, and it just added a whole new layer of making our jobs harder.
So how did you cope through it then? Because where was your sanctuary, I guess, if you...
You know what? So I hate when people, so when you do interviews, so I've done a lot of interviewing, and I always hated when people would be like, oh, I love the mountains. What do you do for fun? Oh, I like to hike. Everyone says that, and it became something that I was like, oh, I can't hire you. But I'm that person now.
That's your sanctuary is the outdoors.
It is. You got to get outdoors. You got to, be somewhere different. I think it's important to, find what fills your cup and do it, make time for it, be selfish about it.
So what do you enjoy? What's your happy place?
What's my happy place? I love Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon.
Okay.
There are some happy places there.
So up in Salt Lake.
Up in Salt Lake. On a daily basis, a couple times a week I hike up Rock Canyon.
Do you find that a lot of nurses that you work with, for the most part, do you feel like most people are trying really hard to keep a good balance?
You know what? I think that's the thing I learned. Mike, I don't know if you experience this in the hair world, but the workforce is different today.
Oh, yeah.
Than our generation.
What? What are you talking about?
What?
Like they're harder workers now?
They're so hardworking. And during my leadership in the emergency department, it's like, has always been a pain point for me because people are coming into the workforce not like me, in that you sacrifice a little bit for your job, you show up for your shifts, you work, right? That's how we grew up,
Yep.
right? You work until you die. You just work. You work and you work and you work. You know, there wasn't really a point. Sometimes you take a family vacation for 2 weeks in the summer. And it was like, you know, work's your family, your second family, and you sacrificed for work. And the upcoming generation is not like that. They like work to an end. Work is a means to an end, where there's good boundaries around it, and they work to make money to go on the next trip or the next thing, or they bounce around in jobs to get to their next goal and their next adventure. And it used to be something I felt frustrated by, but it's definitely something I've learned to respect and appreciate a lot bit, and try to be a little more like.
So basically, like,
Yeah, like I should be working to have fun, not to put it in savings and give it to my kids when I die.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. It's because how I was like, it's like what you do, you save it for a rainy day.
yeah.
But now I think that's what I've gleaned from some of these newer into the workforce people is you need to have fun. You need to get out, have some different experiences.
So why do you were just saving, like working, saving, and then basically going home and being miserable.
Right, because you got kids, like you work, you come home, you have kids, you take care of the house. It is quite a mundane task.
So how do you let go of that? Because I'm in the same boat. Like, I think once you get into your 40s, you start you really start looking at like, oh crap, like I don't have too much time left. Like I got to make sure everything.
Are you having
like,
a midlife crisis? Like
I don't think
Mike?
I'm having a midlife crisis. Like, yeah, I haven't gone out and bought like a Corvette or anything, but like.
Yeah, you start thinking about, whoa, what?
Yeah, it's like when you're 20, you're like, which fast food place should we go eat at? Like that's your thought. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go eat here. I'm gonna go, or like, oh, I gotta have money for fun, like going out with my buddies. When you're at this point in life, in your 40s, it's like, I got a plan for the future. I got a plan for this. So how do you let it go?
Because the end game. Where's the end game? Because you want to stop working one day. We're too old to become like TikTok stars, Mike. Can't make our money that way.
I know. Look at this move. I could do a good dance move on TikTok. No, I'm not even on TikTok. But.
I'm not either.
So I guess that's the big. How do you let go of that? Like, do you just not worry about tomorrow anymore, or do you?
Oh no,
What's the secret?
Oh, I worry. I think that's part of the nice thing about being a nurse and letting go of hair a little bit. Is it gives me some retirement, but. Those, Mike, are still worries I'm trying to figure out.
Okay. Well, and I mean that's the part of life. You're always going to continually grow, and you're going to learn, and you're going to find. And I feel like we always seem to figure it out. Like, it's.
Yeah, life moves on, and you grow with it, or you stay unhappy and stagnant.
Yeah.
Waiting for it to get back to the way you were in your 20s.
But no, I mean, I've thought a lot lately about how, like, why do I not take the trips that I want to go on? Like, why do I think that, I'm just going to wait until I retire and then I can go on it? But I know
But that's traditionally.
I have a lot of clients that I see
how
that
life
waited
worked
until
out.
retirement and then they get sick or they can't do it. So why do we wait? Why do we put
wait?
it off? I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish that, and maybe it's just a way that we were raised, or a mindset that we were taught when we were young or something. So I don't know. I actually think that it's really great that you can get to that point and be like, I'm going to enjoy life a little bit more.
I'm going to enjoy life a little bit more.
Don't get me wrong, I enjoy
my
my
kids are
life.
at the age too where it's fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like where you can take them, right? Your girls are the same way, where you can be like, all right, kids, let's get in the car. They'll complain for a minute.
Yeah. Or an hour or two
or an hour.
3. But
then it ends up being fun.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, you.
I don't know. We just did a little road trip, like family reunion thing up in Wyoming. It's about a 4-hour drive for us. Our kids did great on the way there. On the way back.
And then what happened?
On the way back, I think they were just like done with each other. And
too much family.
There was a lot of fighting, a lot of it was different, but we're also a big. I don't want to put my kids in front of a screen as soon as they get in the car. Like we try to like really keep the kids entertained with how we were entertained on road trips. Look out the window and use your imagination.
Play the A through Z game on license plates and signs.
Yeah, of course. Why not? But actually, we've never done that one with them. But no, it's almost like a game for us to see how long can we go without putting them in front of a screen.
So you and Allie are really good at that. It's an area I need to be better. Because that's when I give them Nintendo time. I'm like, kids, how you've been reading every week? You can have these 3 hours. Have fun.
See, we'll do road trips down to California or something to visit Allie's grandparents, and we usually try to make it to Vegas. It's 5 hours. If we can make it to Vegas without putting them in front of a screen, golden. As soon as they start losing their shit in Vegas, we put a screen in and let them watch a movie to last 4 hours. But I don't know, some people might think that's cruel. Maybe we're horrible parents for it, but
I don't think screens help behavior.
No.
I find that my kids are way more ornery and bickering and fighting when they have more screen time anyway.
But I think it's just like a temporary fix for a parent. Like, again, you come home from a long day of work and you're like, I'm spent. I don't want to
You want to disconnect.
So it's like, what's easy? Sitting and dealing with the kids, or trying to control what they can and can't do? Or is it easier to just throw them on front of a screen and say, leave me alone? I don't know.
We've been trying. I've been building my game closet. And so then that was my thing, like after a 12-hour shift, we go 5 to 5 a.m., 5 p.m. By the time 5 p.m., like I get home maybe about 6. So by the time I get home, I feel very overstimulated. Sometimes days are so sad and I just don't want to continue to engage. But I used to love to just say, movie night, kids. Let's eat pizza. But it's a lot more satisfying to like sit around a table and play a game of Splendor and listen to the kids giggle.
I can see that. We've enjoyed playing the games with the kids too. It's been fun. They don't quite understand all the rules sometimes, the younger ones, but I don't know. So then, okay, so talked about your nursing and all that stuff. Let's talk. I mean, we had talked a little bit before we started shooting this about
boundaries. We were talking about boundaries while we were washing my hair.
And like all that stuff. So what are you learning? Because you're kind of give the people watching like a little bit of background of why you're setting or going through this boundary phase of life.
Well, listen, I'm married to an addict.
Addict of what?
So mostly like marijuana and alcoholic. And addicts are very special type of people. As someone once told me, they're like they're like the most resourceful type of people. But I just think it's really easy to lose yourself when you're married to an addict.
How so?
Well, reality gets blurred, right? So like for my husband, he really wanted to keep it secret, right? And so there was like a lot of manipulation and trickery and like almost it's not like sabotage. That's like too strong of a word, but like where, like we get some of this like intuition and like about something, and then he would spend a lot of energy making me think I was wrong and crazy. And and
then this has been going on like
for years.
What?
Like for years, it's like, oh, I had no idea. My head was so buried in denial and naivety. Is that a word?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the word I'm looking for? That I had no idea.
Was it because you didn't know what to look for? Was it because he was doing a good job hiding? Like, was it?
I think he was doing a good job hiding. Like, right, you grow up with this sense of like growing up Mormon. It's like you get this picture ingrained in your mind of what your life is going to look like, right? Like you marry another LDS fella, and you and they work and everything's nice, and you go to church on Sunday, and it's like big happy family, right? And so I think in my mind I was really focused on trying to create that happy image that you overlook things and then like you let go pieces of yourself. And so my current phase in life is boundaries, where I get to say no. Like I get to say no to things, and I get to have how I feel about, topics, like even like little aspects to raising the kids I might have a strong opinion about, and that wasn't being met in the past. Now it's like, no, I really feel strongly about it. We need to make a compromise.
So is it, to me it sounds like it's, because you're not raised that way. Your whole life has been taught otherwise. Is it?
Yeah.
It's almost like speaking a foreign language.
It's
so
major speaking a
what have been the
language.
hurdles to obviously there's probably been like some downfalls where it's like you go to set the boundary and then revert back to what you were or how you were.
If it is, listen, boundaries are hard. Because in my mind, boundaries were mean and like punishments. But the reality is, it's like boundaries just protect my value, right? Like for me, that they protect what I value and my self-value. Like how, does that make sense? I don't know, like how to like my self-worth, I guess you could say. And I think I was raised so naive. Like my parents did they did such a good job, but I just think by nature, when you're not exposed to people who drink or smoke or even just like cuss, just like regular life things, I was just so naive. You just don't, when you don't engage and your friends don't engage or, your family doesn't engage in any of that, it's hard to like recognize when people use too much, or when it's like crossed the line, or when they're manipulating you to make you think they're not crossing the line.
So at what point did you click to where you're like, I see what's happening here?
Oh, I'm still having light bulbs of click moments, right? Like it took years, I think, because initially my husband like kind of confessed, and it was very traumatizing to me, where I was like, what? Because for years of our lives, I was like, what?
But you had no clue.
And I had no clue. And well, actually, that's probably not true. There was times where we would be laying in bed and I'd be like, in my mind, I think, why do I smell marijuana? No, and I talk myself out of it.
Yeah.
I didn't have the courage or the strength to even like emotional strength to like bring it up and ask. I was like too scared of the answers, I guess. But
do you think that's what it was? You were scared of the answers, or you were scared of, like, I feel like a lot of people are scared to ask the tough questions.
Yes.
Because it's one of those, like, if you really love and care about the person, why do we hesitate asking if there's a problem?
See, this is what I'm learning in therapy right now about boundaries and being assertive. It is loving. Being assertive is loving. I just think it's so hard to feel hurt. Like, when you ask the tough questions, knowing that the response is going to hurt. And I think that's just, my biggest regrets in life are that, like, not having the courage to ask the tough questions and stand up for myself.
So when he confessed and you're kind of taken aback, you're like, oh, what happened? Like, where did you go from there?
I took my kids to my parents' house and drove him to his parents' house, and I said, you deal. You deal. See ya.
And so then, like, okay, so now it's like,
yeah, so
separated.
He went to rehab, and he went to rehab. And this thing about addicts, it's very cyclic, right? Their behavior is very cyclic of in and out of I don't know how to describe it, of usage and self-care. Like, I just had an aha moment this month in thinking about, like, addicts aren't always addicted to substances. It's about the inability to continue taking care of themselves, right? So one of the things that I'm learning about my relationship is, for my husband, he became addicted to me picking up the pieces and taking care of everything, right? Like,
so he knew, like, oh, if I do this, then don't worry, Tricia will...
Like, it's like, right, like, I worked 2 jobs to pay the bills, and I took care of the kids, and I did the cleaning, and I planned the parties and did the grocery shopping. Like, there was not really an aspect of life that he helped engaged in, like, and that became part of the addiction cycle too, where he became dependent on me taking care of life.
Okay.
To where he wasn't taking care of life for himself. And so that's like, when I think about boundaries, that's where my boundaries come in, where I have to set boundaries on what I expect in my relationship and the engagement that I expect him to give me in our family and in our lives together. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And how is he receiving it? Do you feel like he's being receptive to it, or is it still a struggle?
He's so receptive to it. It's like, it's really interesting how, like, I'll set a boundary, and then I think the big thing about it is I'm learning to talk about my boundaries before they even happen, right? To set the expectation and set my expectation before anything happens. So it's nice when something comes up and I can be like, hey, we talked about this. I told you how I felt and what I thought, we discussed what we thought should happen if this scenario came into play. I always so that just happened recently. And I got the biggest smile on my face after being like, I'm going to have to create a boundary here. And I'm going to need you to, do your part, and I'm going to do my part. And it felt so good to, be like, okay, I could do this. And I'd be like, And at the same time, I was like, sorry, it probably shouldn't feel this good that you're, we're having this little bit of dysfunction. And
well, but it's growth it
is growth.
For you. It's like a kid taking a first step, and it's like, yay, I did it.
Yeah.
Now you're taking your first step into, your own... Yeah, boundaries for yourself.
Yeah, because I don't have to get sucked into my lack of boundaries was sucking me into his problems and making them about me. And it's nothing to do about me. Nothing at all. But because I wasn't good at having boundaries. So now it's nice to know that I'm working on something that keeps me from getting sucked down those paths.
And now, because how long ago was this that he confessed or like brought it up to you? And
Listen,
how many years ago has that been?
it's been a couple of, so like we've been going the rounds and rounds. I think like, how old is 5 years now, maybe? Since maybe 2018.
5 years from when he first came and said, hey, I've got this thing and I've been hiding it from you. And so 5 years seems like a long, but it's
a long time, but like, you really don't, like, I really didn't want to give up on our family. I didn't really want to give up on our kids. You know, like, I feel like I needed to learn how to, like, really forgive and love and adjust. And hold boundaries.
And do you feel like it's helping? Like, I mean, obviously you're making those strides. So
what makes my husband great is great. He is so fun. He's carefree. Do you know what I mean? Like, those good times are really what, like, make you hold on. I'm not a person that believes the grass is greener on the other side. You know, like, everybody has their problems, and I know his is, you know, there's no guarantees in ending a relationship to getting a better one.
So you guys, you're in it. You're like, I'm gonna fight for this. I'm gonna make. It's got to be hard though. Like,
it's so hard. It's so scary because the lack of trust is, like, I find that it's difficult to allow myself to bring down walls to be vulnerable enough to retrust.
Okay.
Let people in. It feels uncomfy. It feels very uncomfy.
Like, even with just like friendships,
Just
like
even
random,
friendships. Like, I had built such a wall of protection around myself that it's like, even in friendships, it had affected.
So I'm curious, like in therapy, like, I obviously, if it's affecting all relationships, like, do they tell you, obviously you want to take care of yourself first and figure your own self out, but where do you start after that? Is it with your kids? Is it with him? Is it with your husband? Like,
I think it's always,
who's the next one to, like, that once you figure you out and like set yourself to a standard where you're like, I'm happy with who I am?
I think it's always about me.
Yeah.
To be honest, like, it's always going to be just about me, because I can't control, and that's the other thing that therapy helps me figure out. Like, you can't control anybody else but yourself. And I can only control me and my experiences. And I can only work on me, you know, and how I engage with the world.
Okay. So is your husband, is he still in rehab now, or is he out of rehab?
No, he spent a year. So he's a year and a half clean.
Well, that's great.
The longest he's been clean in a really long time. Spent a year doing it, focusing on becoming sober. Because that's the other thing. Like, sometimes, I think there's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, stigmas maybe in society about addiction. But the way I'm trying to turn my focus and look on it is like, it's like a disease like cancer, where you can have periods of remission, but it could come back. Like, mental illness doesn't just get a treatment once and go away, right? Like, it takes tweaking and fine tuning. It's like diabetes, where you have to take insulin every day. You know, mental health is something that, like, has to be addressed on a daily basis. And sometimes it needs tune-ups and re-entry into rehab, and that's okay. Like, and that's okay.
So if as he's going through that, like that, does that fall, like all the child care stuff on you?
Yeah, that was a little bit of that was some tough growth. So like a year and a half ago, so he's been clean for a year and a half ago, he got really bad and really sick mentally, really leaned into his addictions and went into rehab. And that's where he's like wanted to engage in rehab for a whole year. So he was an inpatient, an intensive patient, and some outpatient, just really focused on getting himself healthy. But that was a tough year. So I had the kids, raised up the kids.
You were an ER nurse working insane schedules. Oh, I happened to find a tumor. So he left. I don't know if you know this, Mike, but he left for rehab in January, and then that week later, they found a tumor on my remaining ovary. So that kind of scared So he's in rehab. You're finding out that you have a tumor.
Yeah, so they're like, we need to do a hysterectomy tomorrow. And I was like, I have to get a leave of absence from work. I have to figure out childcare. That was a rough beginning of a year.
And that was January of 2023 or 2022? 2021.
2022, maybe. It all blurs.
Wow. Did they find, was that tumor worrisome? Or they just took everything out?
They just went and took everything out. And luckily it was benign, which was nice. But I had to have a intensive, took everything out.
Well, and then you've got recovery time. You've got bills with the.
But I have really supportive family, which has been really helpful. Really supportive family. Both on my husband's side and my side.
They both showed up to help out with.
They showed up. And at the time, I happened to have my cousins were living in our basement. And so we started exchanging. Instead of paying rent, they helped with my kids 3 days a week while I was at work. And so that was a lifesaver.
It's just one of those, stuff always tends to figure itself out.
Yeah, it works itself out.
Wow. That's a lot. So then how long after you found out that you had a tumor, was your husband around when you had surgery, or he was in for the...
He was gone.
That's crazy.
But my mom came, and it worked out.
Trish, I don't know how you do it. Do you find, do you ever look back at your life and think, would you have picked a different path?
I don't know. That's hard to say. Because I just think that leads to just sadness and depression. Life is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's hard to move forward if you're constantly looking back, wishing you had made a different decision. So I try to really focus on getting myself healthy so that I can make good decisions moving forward, sound good decisions moving forward. I also think I'm grateful for all the things I've gotten to learn. And it's made me more compassionate. I feel especially in my line of work, in the ER, we see so many addicts and mental health crises, and I have a compassion for them that I never would have had I not had the experience that I had.
Yeah.
And the understanding that I have.
Well, and I think all of our experiences bring us to obviously who we are, and it's, do you either regret them or do you
You just
take
gotta
from them and learn?
have to embrace them.
It's funny. I had a lady that told me once, like, and I've used this as kind of I don't want to say a mantra for life, but it's a good reminder sometimes, because like, you've obviously had a hard life. Like, there's been some really crazy hard things, and a lot of people would look at it and say it wasn't a hard life, it was a bad life, or it was bad things that happened to me. But when your mindset switches things to be bad, they're always going to be bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you switch it and say, this is hard you can grow out of, or you can learn from. Hard things are meant to be overcome. Hard things are meant to just, make us stronger. So in your life, I would say, man, you've had a really hard life, but it wasn't bad because it has made you who you are.
I know. And I think the joy that comes from life after, like, so my family, we didn't grow up doing very active things per se, right? So my in-laws, they love adventure, and they they're constantly traveling, but Brandon grew up riding dirt bikes and ATVing and things like that. So this weekend, I was with my in-laws, and my mother-in-law is teaching me how to be a better ATV driver, because I'm scary. That's just something I didn't grow up doing, and so it scares me. I don't like it. But we went for a ride this weekend, and we got to a point where I was really nervous that I was going to kill us. So it was like this really steep hill, and it was rocky, and so I was like, I'm going to get out, and you're going to drive. This is too hard. She's like, no, Trish, no, you're not. You're going to do this, and you're going to be fine. You have the skills. It's going to be okay. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I was like, let's just switch, and then you can get us up over this hill so we can just be fine. And she's like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to stay right here. You're doing this. So I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, so how do I do this? So she gave me some tips on how to get us up on top of this steep rock alive. And I did it. And I got to the top, and the sense of
joy
and excitement and happiness I had in myself was worth it, right? It was and then it's I can do hard things. And then when we got to the top, the view was so beautiful. You could see all of the canyon and the green, and you can see the backside of Bryce Canyon. It was just so rewarding. And I think a lot, I thought about that in my life a lot this weekend, where it's I can do hard things. And when you get over the hard things, the joy is definitely worth it. And then the whole time, coming back down the mountain, I'm like, I did hard things.
So now
it was really fun.
So now are you going to go back up and try to do it again?
No. I'm not an extremist, which is funny that I work in the ER. I don't like adrenaline rushes. I don't like to put myself in situations where I could get hurt. But I enjoyed learning how to do it more safely. And it was really rewarding to learn something new and do the hard thing.
That's awesome.
I take care of too many ATV accidents to
go extreme.
I like the paved roads that go from city to city. I don't like climbing up boulders. It makes me nervous.
Oh man. So what is have there been other things that you've felt like? I mean, obviously you've had cancer, you've overcome that. You've had, what's the next hard thing that you're going to overcome?
I'm super happy and content in my job right now. And so I think that's my next hard thing to tackle. I just spent 2 years getting a master's degree in healthcare administration. And it scares the living daylights out of me to think about getting a new job.
Why?
I don't know.
Just change in general is hard?
Change in general. I feel like I'm really good at what I do now. And so to step into something different and
did you have a goal going in, like when you're like, okay, I'm going to go get my master's and then this? Or was it just, I'm going to get the master's just because?
Well, I was like in management in my department.
Okay.
For a while, and I stepped down to get my master's, but then I realized like I didn't have really good boundaries at work. So like the whole time I was in my management role in my position, I like overstretched myself to where I was really burnt out, and I probably wasn't doing a very good job because of that. And so it scares me to think about getting back into a leadership role where I'm going to have to practice some new skilled boundary setting. And so I think about that a lot. Like I think about
But Trish,
the change.
you can do hard things.
I know, right? I mean, and that's like, when you think about, the one thing I wish for my life would be that I was a little bit more braver. So that's my next brave thing.
Well, I mean, if you can ride an ATV.
I mean, shoot.
Up the mountain, like this is child's play. Like you got this. Like it's easy.
Listen, someone's going to listen to this and that's like their daily life that they love.
Riding ATVs up there.
I know. There are extremists out there. They love it. I take care of them when they break their backs.
Well, that's crazy, but thank you for sharing that. So we're almost done with the haircut, so I'm going to ask one more question. This will just be kind of I don't know if it's lighthearted or what, but what's the craziest thing you've seen in the ER?
That is a loaded question.
Why?
Because crazy is all relative,
Okay,
right?
What's the thing that made you go, that happened? Like,
my sense of humor has changed greatly. I will say that's one thing I'm grateful. This working in the ER has been so mind-opening to life and people in general that I've been grateful for it. But that could go a million hard ways, right? Like, I think every day I think, that happened? What? I could tell you a story that will make you dry heave.
No, I don't want a dry heave. I just want a funny one. Like somebody comes in and they're like, I don't know, maybe you can't legally talk about this stuff that happens in the ER or whatever, but like somebody comes in, what was the story? I heard a story a long time ago about a couple that was like getting it on in their car, and the guy, like, something happened, he jolted and he sat on the stick shift.
That's what they say.
And it got stuck.
Sure.
And so they had to like cut the stick shift off of the car and then take him to the ER and have it removed.
The amount of times that actually happens. So I made
Wait, that happens more?
Yes, that happens. And everyone always says I accidentally fell and this thing went up my rectum. That's that is never an accident. I made, so for a while in our department, I was over patient experience. ER minds are different. We have short attention spans. We think about things differently. We're a little on the crude side because we see so many things. So I made a video on what good patient experience looks like from an emergency room perspective. I thought it was really good. And so the day of the filming, we were doing a role play scenario on how to do handoffs. And I didn't script anything because I just wanted it to feel natural, and I wanted people to know that you don't have to do it one way in order for it to be right. There's many ways to look right. So I wasn't going to script the scenario. I was just going to let the coworkers who were helping me do it just do it. But I didn't think of a scenario yet. And so I went out to the front desk to talk to the doctor, and I was like, what scenario should we use? And he was like, I have a patient here now. that we're taking care of that you should use. And they had fallen in the shower and got a toothbrush stuck up there. And so I was like,
Okay.
all right, let's do it. So this whole like video I made was great because I thought it addressed so here you have two coworkers addressing an awkward situation with the patient. And I thought it was really good and we did a really good job, but other departments are very offended by it. Every
Really?
time it comes back up, it cycles around every once in a while. And I'll show it to people who don't work in the ER and they get very offended by it. But it happens a lot.
I thought that was just like one of those like those stories that you're like, did it really happen or did it not? But
Like on a weekly basis, someone comes in and usually it's like, my wife's in the waiting room. I don't want her to come back. I think the weirdest thing I've ever been privy to being on shift when finding is a kid's like choo-choo train toy, and you could hear it playing. It's like choo-choo-choo-choo music. You can hear it coming from his pelvis area.
they need to have just a podcast on just ER stories.
I know.
Like funny ER stories.
It's too HIPAA violating.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I still remember like one time you were telling me a story about, because the hospital that you're at is close to the BYU football stadium.
Yeah.
And every night that there's a game, like a football game for the college, the nurses there have a wager basically to see how many people are going to come in with heart
Yep.
problems.
We still
because
do.
they got so invested into the game.
They get anxiety and palpitations, and it throws them into arrhythmias.
It made me start wondering, like, I wonder if hospitals all over the country do that. Like, if you're next to Fenway, like in Boston, do the Boston nurses be like, oh, there's a Red Sox game. How many heart people are going to come in today? Because they're, I don't know.
I would say
think
we
it would
all
be
do.
hilarious.
I think we all do. That's like the thing I've learned too is it doesn't matter where you're from, like especially in emergency room medicine, we're all kind of the same. We all follow the same patterns. We develop similar personalities. We experience similar things on shifts, no matter what city you're in.
Interesting.
It's impressive. It's kooky. It's weird.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for all of your insights and whatever.
I love my haircut.
It looks good. It's now back to where it actually has some shape. So,
I know, it looks so good.
well, is there anything else you want to say real quick? Shout outs to anybody or like whatever? Okay, well, thank you, and that's it. Good night, everybody.